The crash of September 2008 brought the largest bankruptcies in world history, pushed over 30 million people into unemployment, and brought many countries to the edge of insolvency. Wall Street turned back the clock to 1929.
The tremendous crowds which you see gathered outside are due to the greatest crash in the history of New York Stock Exchange.
After the Wall Street crash of '29, which led to the Great Depression.
During the Great Depression in the 30s, there were food lines like the one you see on the screen. As a result, Americans could see the utter disaster that was taking place in their country. In 2015, we no longer have food lines, but instead have the deceptive Department of Human Services where Americans get their social welfare behind closed doors. Imagine if the over 100 million unemployed Americans and the over 50 million Americans on food stamps had to stand in food lines like during the Great Depression. Can you imagine how long those food lines would be? Do you think that would wake Americans up to what is really going on in their country if they could see it every day? Do you think Americans' hearts would drop at the sight of reality? Do you think that the lying machine in America and the world knows that if Americans were to see those food lines, that they could no longer get away with their lying? In other words, do you think that when the lying machine uses their controlled media to tell Americans that everything is just fine in their country, that Americans would believe it as they saw the unending food lines day after day? We're going to come back to more of this type of footage, but for now, I'd like to point out that the bankers who 12-year-old Victoria mentioned in the previous video, who are causing the present crisis in Canada and the world, are many of the same families who caused the crash in 1929 and recently in 2008, where Americans lost 30 to 50% of their life savings. The simple solution Victoria provides is the answer to the problem.
How should the banking system work? In an infamous interview, Mr. McGeer asked Mr. Towers, "Can you tell me why a government with power to create money should give that power away to a private monopoly and then borrow that which Parliament can create itself back at interest to the point of national bankruptcy?" Mr. Towers replied, "If Parliament wants to change the form of operating the banking system, then certainly that is within the powers of Parliament." In other words, if the Canadian government needs money, they can borrow it directly from the Bank of Canada. The people would then pay fair taxes to repay the Bank of Canada. This tax money would in turn get injected back into our economic infrastructure and the debt would be wiped out. Canadians would again prosper with real money as the foundation of our economic structure and not debt money. Regarding the debt money owed to the private banks, such as the Royal Bank, we would simply have the Bank of Canada print the money owing, hand it over to the private banks, and then clear the debt with the Bank of Canada. And yes, we have the power and lawful right to do so. In conclusion, it has become painfully obvious, even for me, a 12-year-old Canadian, that we are being defrauded and robbed by the banking system and a complicit government. What will we do to stop this crime? What will we do to ensure that the next generation will live free and clear of the debt-based economy that enslaves them to the banks? Margaret Mead said the following, and I hope that all of you remember this. "Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Thank you.
Isn't 12-year-old Victoria amazing? How about 14-year-old Rachel Parent?
Is there some room to improve things scientifically if we safety test them, if we actually go through the same kind of FDA studies you have to do with a drug?
Well, I think a lot of people also confuse hybridization with GMOs.
Yep.
And just to clarify, GMOs, it's a genetically modified organism, and it's where they take the DNA from a species such as it can be like bacteria, virus, animal, or even from a plant, and they insert it into the DNA of another species to introduce a new trait. For instance, a common trait is pesticide producing. So they'll make the crops pesticide producing, but they haven't adequately tested, and Monsanto's longest study is 90 days. That really doesn't determine how long-term it's going to affect our health, the environment, and even our entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, saying Monsanto's testing in 90 days is a little mislabeling it, because many other organizations, including it sounds like some ones you're involved in, do much more testing. So a product comes to market, many people test it, including the government. So Monsanto knows that about food.
Actually, can I just, in Health Canada nor the FDA do any independent studies, and they rely only on the very studies provided by the companies that stand to gain by their approval, like Monsanto.
There's other companies as well, right?
Yes, but they all do their own independent.
Are there organizations on the other side of this debate that do? Is there any? What would the testing look like? In other words, what kind of testing would be reliable to say this is okay for the environment or the ecosystem?
Definitely, we need a long-term study to determine if it's safe for not only our ecosystem but our health as well.
Well, here's the truth. Your children can be just as knowledgeable and articulate as Victoria, Rachel, and even as Ben, a gifted homeschool student in our movie, The Lying Machine.
Obviously, you haven't read the Federalist Papers, the ratifying debates, and other public writings by the Founding Fathers. Article 3 of the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, written by the same Congress that wrote the First Amendment, single-handedly refutes the modern fallacious interpretation of the First Amendment's separation of church and state clause. It says, religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary for good government and the happiness of mankind, schools, and the means of education shall forever be encouraged.
Or as these private school students in the sequel of The Lying Machine.
It's called lobbying. Special interest groups give our government servants money and gifts and, in short, kiss their butts. And the politicians return the favors by getting bills passed that aid the special interest groups. And that's exactly why getting rid of the original 13th Amendment was so important to the kings, so that they could legally bribe our government servants to do their bidding.
The Lying Machine movie course and study is one whose time has come relative to the crazy, dangerous times we are facing. It is perfect for homeschoolers or anyone. We call it standard equipment for families so that they can protect themselves from the dangers that are all around us via a globalist establishment implementing numerous tyrannical agendas through the governments they have infiltrated.
The U.S. Congress launched an official investigation.
Interest in the senatorial bank investigation as J.P. Morgan arrives to testify.
J.P. Morgan was among the business titans to be called to account by the Pecora Commission. Flash photography was introduced to heighten the spectacle. In 2010, the same model is followed for a new investigation of a new financial collapse.
Panel, ladies, photographers, move aside.
Former California Treasurer Phil Angelides is chairman of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission.
I'm honored to welcome you as we start this series of public hearings into the causes of the financial and economic crisis.
He has taken sworn testimony from a parade of government and bank officials, trying to get to the bottom of what really caused the 2008 meltdown.
I 1929-2008 today. The financial element is one of many critical elements in the equation. As a grain of sand in the Sahara relative to what is learned in our movie course and study, consider one of many unconstitutional laws that has already been illegally passed. I'm talking about the National Defense Authorization Act, which came into being on New Year's Eve when most of America was under the influence of alcohol. Barack Obama secretly passed this law when no Americans were looking. The National Defense Authorization Act allows the American government to come to your door in the middle of the night without a judicial judgment or order, to pull you out of your house and throw you into a FEMA camp, which some call detention camps for civil unrest and others call concentration camps, and then keep you there as long as they wish. This unconstitutional law allows them no accountability in telling anyone, including your family, what they have done and where they have put you. It is Nazi style, my friends. Or consider that the Department of Homeland Security sees United States veterans as America's #1 terror threat. Do the research yourself, as it's very well documented. Or consider the outright militarization of America's police forces.
Thinking that is totally appropriate in Iraq, but what kind of a situation in the U.S. would you see that happening?
I mean, we've got a lot of constitutionalists and a lot of people that stockpile weapons, a lot of aim.
Or consider that the Department of Homeland Security desensitizes its officers during target practice by using targets that have pictures of American pregnant women, elderly men, and children on the targets. Or consider that Pepsi Cola uses aborted baby fetal tissue as taste enhancers in their products. Or consider that America's southern border is wide open as America's government creates all kinds of unconstitutional multi-billion-dollar organizations with America's tax dollars, such as the Department of Homeland Security, to help defend America against terrorism, while they keep the southern border wide open. Or consider that autism has gone from 1 in 30,000 children to 1 in 55 children in America in a very short period of time. Or consider that fluoride causes neurological damage and stunts growth, yet is put in America's water system. Many countries in the world simply do not allow fluoride in their water systems because of the damaging effects. Or consider that the leading cause of death in America is medical deaths. Approximately 750,000 per year, of which approximately 106,000 are pharmaceutical related. This has been going on for over 12 years, yet the media says nothing about it. Or consider that the average lifespan of an American doctor is 56 years, yet most Americans rely on doctors to counsel them regarding their health.
But the Department of Homeland Security appears to be on a buying spree. Their most recent request is for 10 million rounds of hollow point bullets for a .40 caliber pistol. Another 10 million rounds for a 9mm, plus 1.6 million pistol cartridge 9mm ball bullets. And that's just this year. Last March, DHS bought 450 million bullets, and in September, another 200 million. That's in addition to a reported 1.6 billion rounds they already have.
The consequences of this financial crisis have been grim also. 27 million Americans who are either out of work, can't find full-time work, or have stopped looking for work. Millions who have lost their homes, and millions more who are in the foreclosure process. Trillions of dollars of wealth lost.
Do you think these types of things going on in your country creates a dangerous situation? If so, do you think knowing what is really going on in your country and the world can help protect you and your family by preparing you to be as wise as possible relative to the myriad of issues you must face on a daily basis? Well, I am here to tell you that the former are a minuscule percentage of what the Lying Machine course and study will teach you. This is why we call it standard equipment for every family of the world. Think about it. Instead of your family gathering around the indoctrination box television, you can gather as a family and watch programming in this amazing course and study, learning, growing, preparing, and protecting each other from what lies ahead in this volatile, revelation-ridden world we live in. God's word says, "My people perish from a lack of knowledge." In the world that we live in today, possessing the right knowledge will literally save you and your family's lives. Educational courses of this kind typically range from $500 to $700, and they do not have the added luxury of an outstanding and entertaining feature film as their centerpiece, as well as various other life-changing programming, and hordes of clickable references within. We call this edutainment, which is a perfect mix of education and entertainment. And we are offering the Lying Machine movie course and study for a donation of $149. If that weren't enough, it's a tax-deductible donation. Click below to get it right now. If you need more information about the movie course and studies format and the over $1,000 in free perks we mentioned on the previous page that you will receive upon getting this course, click below to go to the next videos. Otherwise, click donate below to experience the world's most cutting-edge edutainment, and we will send you the list of over $1,000 in free perks you will receive upon donating.